Hello, everybody, and happy Friday. Here we are. Sorry I was late. Chris isn't here, and someone answered rang the doorbell as I was just about to push the button. So I'm sorry. I had to run, answer the door, but now I'm here. So sorry about that, friends, because I didn't want to miss a delivery because we're waiting for the monthly mix. So I had to make sure that I grabbed it. So anyway, apologies. But here we are. It's Friday, and I have a new adventure bracelet for you. And we're going to look at this. This broadcast is full of learning. Okay, we're going to learn about leather, how to do that great closure. Some of you have been seeing on the in the group and in the newsletter today, if you looked at it, there is a lot of beautiful samples from Allie. They're also posted over in the Bead Shop Bead Table group. So we're going to take a look at some of those closures. I'm going to show you how to finish off the leather, this flat leather, with some alternative closures I think you're going to love. Let me see if I've got any questions. So far, good. Everyone's just saying hello. It's great for having everybody here. Taking a look, let me get another bracing cup of coffee or drink of coffee there. I am wearing my cousin's earrings from yesterday's broadcast. You folks loved the earring kit that I put together. We have less than 10 left, I think. So if you want it, now's the time. Today's the time to grab it because it's going to be sold out soon. Also, I wanted to let you folks know as I'm looking around here, just a reminder, and let me put this one up. So there we go. I can talk about it. Remember to find all of our information on many places around the web, the World Wide Web. We're at beadshop.com everywhere. On Facebook, join us for our bead table group. We're on our Instagram at beadshop.com. We've got a lot of great ideas on Pinterest. And if you have any questions, just shoot us an email right at info@beadshop.com. So let me show you a couple, the piece that Allie, that I'm fashioning mine against today. It was the inspiration for this. Let me upload this or let me show you this real quick. So this piece here, you saw, let me scoot over so you can see me chat here, way in the corner. This piece you saw in the newsletter as well as in the group, right? And Allie did a lot of experimenting with the flat leather. She has put up a bunch of really cool samples. So, and just as a reminder, friends, Allie is just like you. She is a customer. So please don't pepper her with too many questions. Shoot those questions on into us at beadshop.com. But we don't want to take advantage of Allie's kindness. So just a quick little heads up about that. So thanks for that. But we will be glad to answer any questions you might have, which is why I'm doing this broadcast today. So this one here is done with 6mm Firepolish. Now you could use other Firepolish. You could drop it down to 4mm for sure. This peyote stitch using alternative materials. Peyote stitch is super easy and fun to do. And I think it looks great with this. You can see on the front, there's the 6mm, and on the back, there are the cubes on this one. Let me show you what I'm using here. And you can also find that photo in the newsletter as well if you want to take a closer look. I'm going to use the cuts. I'm going to use the A-dots here. Allie also showed me, she sent me a couple of in-process shots. Here's one with the peyote stitch, and you can see she's done hers symmetrically. So she has done an odd count. For ease today, I'm going to do an even count, and we're going to see how far one strand there it is. One strand of the beads gets us today. She used two in some with the odd count so she could make it symmetrical, but I'm not going to worry too much about the symmetricalness of this because even count peyote is so much faster, at least for me to do. So if you want to do odd count and have it be symmetrical, you certainly can. Okay, so let me show you some of the things. She also gave me some really great tips. So let me talk to you about those tips as well. So she said that the KO wasn't as suitable for this. And so she said the Fireline will probably work best. She did reinforce going back and through where necessary. The holes in the Firepolish will take many, many passes. She used the small cubes, as I said, the 1.8 millimeter. She said she really liked that. That was her favorite for the backside. Unfortunately, I don't have any 1.8 cubes here. I've got to order some in. But I do have, she said, in that photo you saw of that screenshot, she used the 8/0 Delicas there. And I have the 8/0 cuts, which I think are going to work okay as well. Okay. And she said you can make the tube as wide as you like. It curves nicely with the leather. Let me zoom in on that so you can see that a little bit more. Then, what did she add? She add blah blah blah. We can use any type of closure. Okay, we can use our our magnetic clasps or whatever. But she used that great button and loop. She used a 2-hole button. I'm going to use a shank button on mine today, but I'm going to show you how I would deal with both of those. The loop is similar to the one that she did for the water lily project. If you look at water lily, the instructions are in that handout. I'm going to show you how I'm going to do that. So she said she punched the holes to put that in with the finishing nail and a hammer. So no special tools are required. And I'm going to show you how to do that as well. So we've got a full, I've got a full, whoops, there I am. I have a full, there we go. Something was glitchy with that. I've got a full complement of things that I have to show you. So let's get started here. Oh, and I see our Gita. Gita, it is great to see you. And Janice, thank you so much for doing all of that linking. It's great to have all of you all here. Now, this piece that I've been working on that I'm going to do today. It's part of the Adventure Bracelets series. And as you know, I named the Adventure Bracelets after adventurous women authors. So this iteration here, I've called Toni. Now, 10 points to you if you know which Toni this is named after. One of my favorite contemporary authors in the book verse. So that's right, Toni Morrison. That's right. So this is called the Toni. And I did it with these kind of shiny beads and stuff because I always feel like Toni Morrison has a great inner shine, I guess. And if you haven't read any of her books, just jump in, right? She was an American treasure. So, so this one's called the Toni. That's what it is, and it's under Bead Shop Collections. Whoops, Bead Shop Collections / Toni. And Steph Millie, I thought of you when I named her because I'm all Steph Millie's going to know who I named this after. So yeah, I love her. I love her. All right, so let's get started. Let's talk about, first I want to talk about leather. God, there's so much. So let me get my, beloved, one of my faves, one of my favorites of all times. Such a good read. I don't know why I associate Toni Morrison with summer reads. Maybe it's because I have more, or I used to have more time in the summer to read. but I need to put another one of her books on my reading list. Okay, so let me show you. I know this looks like a big old mess. So let's get started. Let me show you what we have here with this photo, with Allie's photo. Let me put this up one more time. So take a look at the button, right? The button is stitched. Take a look at the top of that piece. See how there's a shank button there? It's this honeycomb button. It's right here. The 2-hole. I also have this old coin, which is the shank. On the other side, there's a loop that's been macrameed and then stitched on. And can you see the neat, very neat stitching along the back there of the bracelet? And you can also see how it sits very nicely on the wrist, and that the bracelet itself doesn't overlap. Can you see that? It just kind of comes together with maybe about 1/4 inch on the inside. So that's kind of the configuration about it. How my mom is saying Toni makes her think of Toni Smith. We had a dear friend, Antoinette Smith. She was a lovely lady, one of my grand's best friends. She raised dachshunds, and she was, maybe I inadvertently thought about Toni as well, because she also had kind of an inner fire. She would give me the best Christmas gifts when I was a kid. Really interesting, kind of quirky things. Okay, so shout out to Toni Smith. Okay, so let me clear the decks here for a second. You know what? I'm going to clear all the decks. I'm going to take away my bead board. And I'm going to bring in some tools. Some you'll have around the house. We're going to get to the beading, but we're going to deal with the leather first. Some you'll have around the house. Some we're going to get in for you. Some they're nice to have, but you don't need them, right? But I'm going to show them to you so you're familiar. So Allie was saying, if you noticed on that piece again, let me pull it back up so we can look at it. And Allie, big, great thanks to you for putting together these great photos and these great tip sheets. It's really above and beyond. So appreciative. See how the leather here, what she did is she clipped the ends. So the ends aren't pointy. They're kind of tapered around the side. I feel it gives it a really nice finished look for that. So I'm going to show you a couple of ways. I'm going to cut down, I'm going to cut this at 6.5 inches, I think. And the way, you've seen me work with this before, I have a little tiny rotary mat. You can find all of this rotary stuff. It comes from the craft world or quilt making world. I have a tiny little square here. And you can also cut this with a nice sharp pair of scissors. But I'm going to cut this with, this is a small rotary cutter. I think it's like 22 millimeter. This is the small one. And I'm going to use that rotary cutter to slice that along the side. But if you have a nice pair of really sharp scissors, you can do that as well. Just cut it. Sometimes when you cut it with scissors that are dull, it kind of chews up the leather on the side, so it's not such a clean cut. Okay, but use what you have. Okay, you can this little setup, this is a tiny rotary mat. You can see this is a 7-inch mat, and this is just a 2.5-inch square, so really small. It doesn't take up that much room with the small rotary cutter. Does it say what size? I think it's the 22 millimeter. It's the, well, let me just measure. I've got the millimeter gauge right here. Okay, let me show you. And then you can keep this for your leather or other things that you have to cut. It also works well on paper. Oh, sorry, I lied. This is about a 28 millimeter here. Okay, so it's the smallest one. I also use this to cut out fabric and stuff like that. But if you have one for craft, I would keep it for craft. I wouldn't use your fabric one for things like leather and other things. Keep it sharp. Okay, but do be careful. Just a quick note. If you open it like this, you pull this open, you expose the blade. See how the blade is open? This is super, super sharp, my friends. So before you put this down and continue working, close it. That's what my mom taught me. And so you don't want to learn the hard way. So close this up. Okay. So now what Allie did on hers is, I'm going to turn it over. She used her Xuron cutter. And you can make a mark, right? I could come in and use my my little, here we go, my little ruler there to, make a mark to cut. But I'm going to go ahead and just eyeball this. So see here, and I'm doing it on the back end. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to clip this corner, and then I'll kind of look at it, fix that size in my mind, kind of go at the same angle. That looks pretty good. Now I'll do the other side. Getting them hopefully. And the cutter, I think this is the maxi shear I'm using. The cutter snips this leather off pretty nicely. That one might be a little short, so I'm going to come in and re-clip if I can. There we go. Okay. So here we have, can you see it? You have that nice clipped off edge. You could go a little less, a little more, whatever. I love the way that closure looks. Now I want to show you something else. I've been working with leather for a while. I love working with leather. I think leather is a fun material to work with, and I'm so excited we have this. This is it's 3/4 inches in width here, but it's a nice heavy, great leather to work with for bracelets. But what I want to show you, I'm going to cut another one here. Let me cut another length. And this, what did I say? About 6.5 inches. My wrist is 6.5 inches. So I'm going to cut it the length of my wrist. And then we'll see how that works. Let me go ahead and slice this off right here with my rotary cutter, or clip it with your really sharp scissors. So here's my piece here. Now, sometimes you see leather, and I had a sample here of one of my pieces, and now I have no idea where it went. So, but I'm going to make it here. You can see that leather sometimes is tapered or rounded off like so. So you can do that actually pretty easy. There are a couple of ways that you can do that. This is something I've gotten from the leather working store. This is what's known as a belt end cutter, right? Can you see how it's curved like this? And you use this for rounding off your ends. Now you can find this if you have a Tandy leather near you. You can also look online at different leather supplies. This size that I have, it looks like a 30 millimeter size loop. And can you see how I put it down? You can't see because my hand's in the way. But if you put it, I'm going to put it on the back. If you kind of put it down and center it, you can then, these leather punches. Thank you, Shelley. It's called a punch, not a cutter, but sometimes I call it a cutter. Where is my, there it is. This is what's known, you can use a hammer, but this is known as a maul, a leather working maul. It's weighted on the inside, and on the outside here, there's like Delrin or like the same thing that the wire straightening pliers have on them, so that you don't damage the top of your cutter. The cutters are made of fairly soft steel, so hitting them repeatedly with a metal hammer is going to eventually mushroom these out. It's not the end of the world, but I like using a maul as well. So these are all leather working. It's going to be a little loud, so bear with me here. See there? 3 shots, and you can see I've rounded that, okay? But if you don't have a punch and you want a rounded end, I got a pill bottle cover, okay? And so I'm going to get my pill bottle cover, or pill bottle lid, right? And if you have a smaller one, the rotation or the curve will be a little more pronounced. This one's a little big. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this pill bottle top as my, almost like my ruler, and I'm going to come around and I'm going to cut it. Can I get it around there? Almost. I was using this as my guide. I don't like it so much with this. I don't want that cutter to slip. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use actually my scissors for this one. And I'm going to give myself a mark. I can also maybe cut it. I'm going to try cutting it with the rotary cutter without that pill bottle in the way. Yeah, there we go. But again, you can also cut it. You want to be really careful, though, that this rotary cutter does not get away from you, because if you're, it's like a pizza cutter, right? So you're always cutting away from you like this, and you're keeping your fingers out of the path of that cutter, right? Because if you don't, you're going to be taking your finger to the emergency room with you, okay? So just do be careful. I'm going to trim it up just a little bit on this side. And if you're not real familiar with the rotary cutter, again, just use your sharp scissors here. Okay, so you can do it. Let me just use this to slice. You could also use an X-Acto knife if you had a nice sharp one to cut it. However you like to cut in a crafty way. But see here, you can see one is a little more curved than the other. Okay, so we've got that. So that's another way to achieve a nice rounded corner. Okay, find something that's round, trace it, and then cut it along that traced line. Let me show you also about the edges of this leather. I like just kind of the rough leather like this, but sometimes if I make like straps for purses or things like that, I'll use leather that's very similar to this, right? I will use a bit of beeswax here, and just a little bit, I'll add a little bit to the edge of my leather, okay? Then I'll get a dowel, or in this case, I just have a pencil. It has to be wood though, okay? And I'm gonna use that pencil to kind of rub that wax in and burnish along the edge. And what it gives me, and I'll show you this. Can you see? It's kind of hard to see, but if you feel this edge and you feel this edge is kind of burnished down just a bit, and you can feel kind of the edge, it's kind of sticking, not sticking up, but it's sharper on this edge. It's not a must do, but sometimes if I want a really finished look on my leather, you can find an edge burnisher in a leather store. It's actually just a piece of wood that has a notch in it, and you run it along here. But I've found like a dowel or a pencil or something like that in a pinch will kind of do the same. And Leslie, that's right. You kind of get a nice sheen to it. You can see, it's kind of hard to see the difference here on camera, but if I feel it, I can feel that that's nice and smooth, and this is a little more rough. You don't want to put a ton of wax on here, okay? Because you don't want it to be sticky. You want just enough that when you burnish it in, it's going to make a nice finished edge. Okay, so that's something else that you can do with the leather if you have a mind to. You can also get leather dyes. You can dye the edge of this leather. You could also do it, and I'm going to do it on a scrap piece here with a Sharpie marker. You could get a Sharpie marker that's the color of your leather. This one is black, so I'm going to use this. But you could also use alcohol inks. There are things called edge coat that you can use as well, that's made especially for leather. So, but I'll come in, and I have a dark brown Sharpie, but right now I've got this black one, so that's what I'm going to use. I'm going to coat this edge, right, like that. Yeah, leather dye, I mean, practice. You'll have some extra to work with, right? So just experiment and see what works for you. But here's my Sharpie. Can you see that? That's there. And then I'm going to get a paper towel. Yeah, I agree, Sherry. The edge of the leather, it's just slightly fuzzy, which doesn't always bother me, right? Like you can see this one. This is the one from that Adventure Bracelet kit that I did. And you can see the edges are a little rougher on this, but I feel like it goes with the spirit of the piece, right? And then these, the 5mm, they're finished on the ends. Okay. So these are all great questions. So let me show you. I would add the color first, right? So here I've added the color. I'm going to kind of just tamp it, make sure that it's kind of color fast on here, that I don't have any extra color. So I'm putting this along my paper towel like so. Now I'm going to seal it, because if you wax the edge, you won't be able to color it, right? Because in theory, this wax is going to make it kind of color fast. Okay, so I've added some wax on there. What I really want is a cotton cloth, but I'm just going to wipe a little bit of that off. And can you see a little bit of that color is coming off because it's been wet? Not wet, but it's been diluted a little bit with the wax. So I'm going to add a little more wax. It's looking pretty good if you ask me. And I'm just going to burnish that in. Friction. See, I can even burnish with this paper towel, to be honest. It's friction and the heat. Oh, look at that edge. And I wish you were sitting here next to me, because this portion that I did a lot of the fast burnishing with has really flattened out. It has a really nice sheen. Like, you know, when you get a fancy purse and it has that edge coat to it. This one still is a little lumpy. So I'm going to come in and burnish that with my paper towel. Maybe I'll get my pencil. The pencil is nice and stiff, right? So you can really flatten out. Sorry, I was out of the frame there. And then I can come in. But look at that closure, that edge, and it feels super smooth. See, there's the undone edge, and here's the edge. Even this black, I think, looks fine. It gives it a nice finished look to it. So let me just do, well, I don't need to do the other edge. We need to move on. But you can see, right? Like this. Okay. Yeah, and this, it's called a maul. M-A-U-L is what this particular leather hammer is called. You can find them, again, at Leather Supply. They have different varieties, different weights. Let me see. I will. Let me weigh this for you. At least in ounces. Hang on. This is just one that I've found. Do any of you have an old Weight Watcher scale like I do? That's what this is. This is 12 ounces, so it's about a pound or so, thereabouts. Okay, a little less. But yeah, you could use a rawhide mallet, whatever you like, right? And so this was the one that I used for this cutter, for this this leather cutter to cut the edge here. You could also use it for stamping on leather, stuff like that. Okay, so let's go ahead and make some holes. I'm going to trade out to this piece of leather here. And I'm going to make some holes in this leather. I'm going to turn it around this way. Okay. And yeah, I would recommend beeswax. I don't think synthetic thread conditioner will do the same thing like Thread Heaven, I think you're talking about. But you can certainly try it on a scrap and see if it works. But look at that edge. Oh, God, I just love it, love it, love it. You can also rivet this together, right? You could make a really cool keychain. There's all kinds of stuff you can do with leather. If you go to my Instagram, you'll see I work with leather quite a bit. It's under Bead Kate, and you can find some of the ideas that I've done there. But if you folks love it, maybe we'll get some more things in for you. Okay. So let me make some holes, and this is where I want to measure. So if this is about 3/4 of an inch. So I'm going to find my center, which is right there. I'm going to mark using a Sharpie marker, though, so you can see it, right? But I might, well, I don't know. It doesn't really show. There we go. I'm going to do 2 holes here. There's this one. There's that one. And I'm going to do a single hole for the button over here on this side. Okay. So this is going to be for the loop when I stitch on the loop. And this is for the button right here. Yeah, I mean, you could try shoe polish. Shoe polish is kind of waxy, right? Try it. I mean, you get a yard of this, so you're going to have some stuff left over. So, necessity is the mother of invention for sure. So, play around with it. There is a product, I use it when I make handbags. It's called edge paint. Now, there's a lot of edge paint that's out there. I have some that's Italian edge paint. You can mix the colors and stuff. Edge paint comes in a variety of colors, but if you have red, yellow, and blue, you can mix and make any color you want. Let me show you. Actually, I want to show you something else. I have it across the room here. This might have some finished edges on it. Emily was so kind, and Emily, I got it yesterday, but I opened it up this morning. Emily sent me a belated birthday gift, which is, she knows how much I love leather. This is a little leather wallet for my passport that I'm going to be taking with me when I go teach our class in France next year. But can you see how this has also been edge painted, this leather? Okay, Janice is saying this episode's going to go on for hours. It is, JP. This is Friday. It's Free Tip Friday, and it could be an hour, or who knows, it might be 5. No, I'm just kidding. Don't worry. We're not going to be here forever. But look at how nicely this is cut. And again, this is finished here as well. Okay, so Emily, a big thank you. I love this so much. And it's so timely. Works in right with our leather. She got it at her market, her farmer's market. And this is the, I'll show you the card here. Come on, focus here. Let me see if I can get a focus on this. Sorry, my camera completely went out of focus. Let me see if I can focus it. There we go. It's this. This is the card right here. And it says jakecastro.co. And it looks like he's on Insta at jakecastro1. Okay, beautiful handmade things. Emily has a beautiful handmade bag that she carries around too from him that's really beautiful, but it's really beautifully done. Thank you so much, Em, for that. Okay, so let me show you how to punch some holes in this leather. Okay, now there's a myriad of ways to do it. We're going to carry these. I've already told Janice we're going to get these in our for our tools. This is a traditional leather punch. Okay, again, I use this for straps, for handbag straps. These would be great to add. I want to add for you folks some really pretty leather closures. It's like a little button, especially for leather. I think I'll be able to find some of those to get those in. I use those a lot. But a leather punch is nice because you get a super clean hole. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate this cutter, and the cutter has different sizes. I'm going to go down to the 2mm size right here, and we're going to use that. I'm going to punch one of these holes out with this. Okay, but you don't have to have this fancy tool. Okay, this is pretty easy though. We punch it, and there's a nice, slick, clean hole. Okay, yeah, and you could use it on a belt. That's exactly right, to put in new holes for your belt or whatever. Okay, what you could also do is you could use a nail. So let me show you. I've got this here, my loops. Let me zoom in just a bit so you can see a little closer. You want to be careful not to hammer your finger, but this is just like a finishing nail or whatever. It's not that big. I just grabbed it out of I have a jar with nails in it. So I like the size of this one. This one measures a little over 1.5 millimeters. I'm going to line that up with one of the holes I marked. I'm going to get my hammer. I'm going to hammer it through. This is a cutting board that I got at, I don't know, the dollar store or whatever. And I use this to go underneath my leather cutters and stuff like that. So I obviously don't want to wreck my table surface. It's nice and thick. So if you're hammering in it, it's not going to go through. Okay. And I like it a little better than wood to do something like this with. So here you can see the nail is through the leather, and I can kind of pull it down if I want and really make sure that hole is nice and big in it. I'll push the nail out, and I'll insert the nail. Since I hammered it from the back, now I want to insert the nail from the front to try and even it out, right? Even that hole out. So here we have a nice stitching hole. Okay, so that's done. Let me do one with a nail again on this side. Hammer it down so it hammers into, this is like Delrin or, you know, the plastic cutting boards. And again, it's small, so it doesn't have such a huge footprint for me. I kind of move it around to make sure that I've got a nice hole in there. And I pull it out, pull my my nail out, push it back in on the other side, and there you go. Okay, so, and it's kind of straight. I'm not going to worry about it too much. I really didn't mark those. Or I did, but I hammered this one a little bit over there. It should be over a little bit more, but I'm not going to worry about it too much. Okay, so there we have it. Now what Allie did, I'm going to look at her photo here real quick. Bear with me here. Okay, so she actually put in two, let me show you the back. See how she did two across that way? I did one. So I think I'm going to have my stitch go down this way. And maybe I need one more hole here. Okay, so it goes down that way. I'll cut this one, but you could do them side to side too, right? You decide. It's your kind of artistry. I'm just going to eyeball this. I want it to be kind of close right here, like so. Okay, and again, a little off. If I were doing this in real jewelry making time, I would really measure. I've got all kinds of, you know, use your rulers, your grid rulers and stuff to make sure it's nice and straight. Okay, so let's take a look at just making this as a bracelet. And luckily I guessed correctly. This is 6.5 inches, and I made this 6.5 inches, right? So I have about, maybe it's about 3/8 of an inch, maybe 1/4 of an inch, somewhere in there, that in between, you know, as a gap in between the leather, so it doesn't overlap, right? And you can size this any way you like, because you know, you can make the gap a little bit wider or just a little narrower. But for my wrist, it's 6.5, so I cut my leather the same size as my wrist. Okay, so let's go ahead. I'm going to stitch the button and the closure on this just to get to that point. And then we're going to tackle the peyote stitch on this one. Okay, so let me just play around with some ideas about stitching onto this leather. Okay, let me see. Any other questions? It's great to see all of you who are jumping on. Paula, you are definitely not the only one who uses your sewing tools to mark leather. You can definitely raid the toolbox, get some great stuff. Okay. So, and Steph Millie, thank you so much. And with my nails, yeah, I just got my nails done yesterday. I'm on a kick, so I'm trying to keep them looking good. Gives me a lift. Anyway, okay, let me get some stuff to stitch with. Now on my bracelet, where did my thread go? It was here a second ago, and then I moved everything. On the bracelet that I'm using, let me double check the project and see what we put down that I used. Adventure Bracelets. This is the Toni, and I put cerulean for the photo. of what I'm using. The cerulean thread seems to have rolled away. Let me grab just a different Ceylon because it doesn't really matter for this. I thought this is the, I've been using this all along. I have it sitting right here. So this is the burgundy here too. Okay. But for the project, I grabbed the cerulean. And I'm using regular for this stitching. Okay. So just come on this journey with me. All right. Because we're going to do a little bit of experimentation here with these holes. And then we're going to get to the peyote. I promise. But let me grab my button that has the 2 holes. Here we go. Okay. And I'm going to use that button over here and I'm going to stitch it on. I'm just looking at the size of the holes that I've used and the size of the holes on this button. Thankfully, I kind of made them the same size. Who knew? I don't know. I guess my crafting superpower kind of knew subconsciously. So I've got one here. And see, this hole I pressed way too hard. And it's kind of got a little large, but it doesn't matter. The button's going to cover it, so it doesn't matter so much. I'm going to use, I guess I'll use this Ceylon on this side, right? Let's see how it looks. So the needle, I got out some different needles. Traditionally for leather, and we used to carry these, we're going to grab these again and put them back in our Glover's needles, which have a point. Let me show you here. It's a needle that's used for piercing leather. So it has a nice sharp piercing point on this end and the eyes on this end. We use this for ultra suede, stuff like that. I've got an ultra suede project coming up. So we're going to add these beauties back in because I love a Glover's needle. But I'm going to use a Sharps needle today. And let me show you what I'm going to do with this. The Sharps, and if you have needles at home, like I have some bigger, like larger eye needles, stuff like that. But I wanted to use stuff that we carried and had in stock. So I've got, larger needles with big eyes. You can also use like a tapestry needle, which we should probably get back in, which we've carried for a while. But I'm going to use this Sharps, and I'm going to show you how I use it. Let me zoom in just a touch more here, so I'm a little closer. This is like Leathercraft 101 with Kate, but I think it's kind of fun. I'm going to use that fire line that we're going to use for the peyote. And this is fire line. This is 4 pound. You could also use 6 pound. I don't know. 4 pound is what I had sitting here. So that's what I'm going to use. I'm going to go ahead and cut it. I'm going to make a nice cut using my Xuron cutters. There we go. And I'm going to flatten, kind of hard to see, but I'm going to flatten the end of my fire line like so. And I'm going to thread that through my needle. And this is a size 10 Sharps needle. Now, again, you could, since these holes are pretty large, you could probably even use a sewing needle, right? But again, I'm going to use what we have. And a Sharps is my favorite. Now, what I'm going to do here, friends, is I'm going to tie a knot. Some of you have seen me do this before. I'm going to go through once, so it's like a surgeon's knot. I'm going to go through twice. And I'm going to tighten it down. And I'm going to kind of pull it to make sure that that knot isn't moving anywhere. Same thing here. There we go. And I'm going to cut off these tails that I've tied here. So what this gives me, my friends, is a needle with a big eye. All right, I call that a leader. I put a little leader on this needle. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a length of maybe, I don't know, 24 inches about of thread of the seal-on. And this is regular. You could also use fine, but I have regular. I wanted the thread to really show. So. And I'm going to thread it through the eye of my extended eye of the needle. So now I'm going to come through like this. And I'm going to give myself a nice tail here. Let me zoom out. I'm a little tight. I have a nice tail there that I'm just going to kind of let hang out. But I want it to be at the end between the button and the leather. Now I think what I want to do here, I want some decorative stitching. I want to see this. Whoops, did I split the thread? What did I do here? I did. Really? Be really careful. Do not do what I did and split that thread with your sharp needle. So I'm going to come around the side and I'm going to make 2 stitches. Oh, for heaven's sake. That was close. Do not split your threads. Come on. It's a little out of my focal range. There we go. And again, if you have a nice stitching needle that has a nice big eye, you don't need to extend that eye. But I'm going to come through one more time, not splitting the thread. And one more time here. And it's nice because I have that nice big hole here. Get this out of the way so I can kind of see some air. There we go. In the hole. Great. So I've done 2 stitches here. Now I'm going to go down and do 2 stitches on the side here. This is merely decorative. There's no other purpose for this other than I wanted a little thread here to look nice. I could also, if I felt like it, I could have waxed this thread. But I think once it's, oh, I keep splitting this thread for criminy sakes. There we go. I think it's going to look kind of nice. Bring it around. I do one side and then the other. Then I put it back through. I look for the tunnel, the light, so I don't split the thread. And we'll do it one more time. And then I'm going to sew on the button. Okay. Look for the light. Hopefully I didn't, I didn't split that thread. Okay, so here we go. Let me put this down so you can see what I've got here. Okay, so I've got some decorative stitches there. Now I'm going to add the button, and look at how cool those stitches look underneath that button. Adds just a little bit of texture. Let me see if there some other questions. Would that technique work with a bead spinner to add A-dot beads? Kelly, I'm not sure which technique. Are you talking about the peyote stitch? Because with peyote, we put on one bead at a time. So a bead spinner won't work for that. Let me go ahead and rethread the eye of my needle here. And I'm going to stitch this button on. So I'm going to come through the back. And I have real big holes, so this thread is going to fill up those holes pretty nicely. Right? If you had smaller threads or smaller holes, you might want to use smaller threads because this will take up a lot of the room in the holes. Okay. So I'm going to stitch it through. And I'm going to make a couple of passes. So I go up the back, through the hole, around the front. So you really do want these holes that you've made in the leather to be about the same size, the same width across. This is a regular Ceylon that I'm using here. You could certainly use fine. I'm using regular because it's a little thicker. So I've gone through 3 times, and I'm going to call that a day. I'm going to go through this all the way. Oh, split that thread. We don't want to do that. Come on, you are so close. Go through. Let's see if there's any room. There isn't. So I'm just going to go through that hole in the button. See that there? Now I've got this tail from before. Okay, so I'm going to bring both of these threads up to the top right here and take my needle off. This is why you want a nice piece of thread on the end. I'm going to tie a knot overhand, or not an overhand, a half hitch there. And I'm going to bring it around to this side so the button sits evenly. I'm going to go through. Tie it off on this side and give it one more. Right over left, left over right. Then I'm going to add some GS hypo underneath here if I need a little help pulling on that thread. There we go, like so. Right, so those knots also let my button sit up just a touch. Right, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to glue that in place. Doesn't that look nice? You can do it with or without the threads on the side. But I thought the threads on the side gave it a nice, I don't know, a little nice extra touch. Oh, of course, my GS hypo. The tip is all funky, so let me get that glue off of there. And we're going to get some glue underneath. So let me wipe this off. Because we want to be good, we don't want to get, a big mess of glue under here. So I'm going to glue it here. That tip of the GS is perfect. I'm going to go all the way around kind of that shank that you've created with the thread here. I know it's hard to see dark down in there, but I'm going right around here. This is the honeycomb button that we carry from Tiara Cast. Unfortunately, the Tiara Cast buttons are going away, so stock up because they're closing by the end of the year. We've got some more Tiara Cast coming. We made one kind of bulky final order, but it doesn't have everything. You know, we didn't have hundreds of thousands of dollars to get everything that we needed, but it's a nice button. So this is the honeycomb. I'm going to clip away this extra and I'm going to let this sit, right? I'm going to let it sit. Now on this side, let's do the loop. Okay. Oh, this is a great, and you know what? I kind of forgot that tip. If you put a sewing pin under where the thread crosses over the button, which is here, it'll give you a little room to have space for the loop to go under the button, right? So it gives you a little bit of space there. So it'll give you that little bit of a button shank. Great share. Thank you for that. So now on this side, I have some 1.5 millimeter. Oh, here's my Ceylon, my cerulean. But we'll do this with the burgundy. So let's take a look at Allie's picture here for a second. Now see on the loop side, what she did, and this is in her water lily project, but what she did was she added a button there. I mean, not a button, but she added a bead there over the macrame so that it held the stitching, just for interest in there. My guess is it probably held the stitching, aided in holding the stitching in there as well. I'm going to do this one without a bead to just show you how I'm going to do this, but I'll show you. It's going to be really similar how we connected this button. Okay, so let's go ahead and I'm going to make a loop. I'm going to cut myself, this is about 10 inches, and you kind of have to make it to your specifications, right? So I don't need a loop that's real big, but I do need a loop that's going to go around the button, that's going to come in, and it's going to hold the piece, hold this leather closed. So I'm going to start my macrame, I think probably, I don't want it to go to the very edge. I want it to go down just a little. What did Allie do on hers? She started hers actually close to the very edge, so maybe that's what I'll do. She started it about right here. So I'm going to take this off. I'm going to hold my finger there, make sure that the loop goes over the top, which it does. I'm going to get my pen. I'll cover that with some macrame, but I need to really know where to start. There we go. I've marked it. Let me get my clamper. I'm going to clamp it right there. Okay, so that's where my macrame is starting. And let me clamp it close together. Okay, so now you can macrame this with anything. I'm going to macrame it with this burgundy. So the flat macrame knots. I could also silk wrap it if I wanted to. Silk wrapping might be faster. But let me show you the macrame here real quick. I'm going to come in, find the center. of this here. Get that kind of out of the way. I think I'm going to hold this off the edge of my board so I can work with it. But see, I'm going to come up and I'm going to do my flat macrame stitch right over left, left over right. You could do this with Chinese knotting cord, with 0.5 millimeter leather. You could hold 2 strands together of fine weight. If you go to our skill builders, I'm not taking the time to detail the flat macrame here today because we are kind of not in a time crunch, but in our skill builders, we've got so many tips for you. I really like how this clip is working, right? And I'm using this, my little cutting board here, to lift everything up off the table. I mean, you could connect this to your design board, you know, like we do a wrap bracelet and stuff, right? So, you know, but this is working out for me, and I clamped it right where I wanted that macrame to start. You could definitely use Irish wax linen on this. With Irish wax linen, the macrame is a little less pronounced, if that makes sense. The stitches are a little less defined because the thread is a little softer, but I love the way that looks too. Okay, you can use any cord you like. You could even use pearl cotton or any threads that you might have sitting at home too. But the CKC, I think, is the best way to go. Okay, so let me put this up against. Here it is. Now, if this is up here, I've put my holes. This is a learning moment. The holes to stitch this on probably should have been up here and up here. So you know what I'm going to do? I think I like the look of this a little bit better. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to ignore this hole that's down here. If I could pick these up and put them up a little bit. But I'm going to give myself one more hole right here. And since I did this side with the nail, I'll do it with the nail again. And I'm just going to do it visually. Usually I come in from the back, but I'm just going to do this fast. Try not to hammer my fingers. Take it off. Need to get it a little closer. Maybe I need to use my pliers to get this nail out. There we go. Push it through to the other side to make sure that hole is nice and open. There we go. Make sure this one here is also nice and open. Okay, so you can see those line up actually a little bit better too. One is here, one is here. Okay, so now, there we go. Looks good. There, you can see the light coming through those. Okay, so let me check this length. That looks like just about right. I'm going to give myself like 3 more stitches down here. Okay. So, and this will look great just wearing it without any embellishing. Right? Wouldn't that look good? Just as a leather cuff. Okay. So there we have it. Now I'll go ahead, I'm going to glue these down. I'm going to glue this down and thread burn it. Okay. okay? You could run your tails back up and all that kind of stuff, but I'm going to singe these. I'm going to let it sit for a moment, though, to let that glue kind of sit, and then I'm going to get my thread burner and singe it, okay? I want to show you folks something while that's sitting there that I've been playing around with this idea, and maybe we'll do this as a different, obviously as a different project. I'm not going to show you this today. Let me see, let me make sure I have it here. I've been playing around with braiding over the top of this flat leather. And I was kind of stumped at the closure I wanted to do. But I think this closure with the button and this braiding that I'm doing, and see, I'm also kind of pairing it with some of that peyote stitch. So this is something that's kind of rolling around in my head. It's not real difficult. And look at how nice it looks as a bracelet. But anyway, you'll see these again. Let me put those together. Let me get my thread burner and let's singe that and let's stitch this down. Let me get the thread burner that has the, I just changed all the batteries, so they all should work. Yeah, here we go. So I'm going to come in. If I were doing this in real jewelry making time, I would have let this sit just a touch longer. But I'm going to go ahead and singe it through. And I'll do that same thing over here. I've generously glued it down. I like to thread my thread through the tip of the thread burner so that when I go ahead to singe this thread, burn this thread away, I turn on the thread burner so it's hot, and then I just slice through the thread. Okay, but heat it first, then slice. Don't slice and heat at the same time, or else you may end up, the thread burner won't be hot enough and you'll pull this tip out. It's not the end of the world. You push the tip back in, but it's most effective heat, then pull, or heat and then touch. Okay, so let me put the lid back on. And then at the end here, if you have any like wayward beads or anything that you might want to add to the end. Let's see if I have a couple of beads. Let's make it kind of pretty. If I do, you know what I'm looking for, don't you? A bead I always use. Let's do this and this and this. I don't know what we're going to do without these tiara cast, these spacers. Oy. I love them so much. So this fits in here. I'm going to throw in a coiled spacer. I'm going to slide this up, tie an overhand knot. But we're finding some new, Janice and I actually have some new spacers that are coming down the pike for you folks. So never fear. I'm going to do this one going the opposite direction for a little bit of visual interest. And I'm going to make it a little, not the exact same length. Tighten that up. Yeah, everyone knew I was getting shadows. I'm so terribly predictable. Let's go ahead and cut this away. And this one away. And so here we've got our little loop closure. Okay, it is a huge blow. You know, all of us are still hoping that perhaps there may be an 11th hour save, but I don't know. It certainly will not go on in the capacity that it's going on now. Let me thread burn these away. But we had 45 wonderful years with them. Great memories. We'll find some new things to use. Okay. So now I'm going to make sure that that closes over. And I'm going to come in. And I'm going to leave this closed for now because, well, I don't have to. Because I know that this end of my macrame right here needs to line up with the end of my leather. Make sure that you're facing the loop off the side here. And let's get that needle that has the leader on it. And let's get that piece of Ceylon regular. And you could stitch it in a contrasting color. But since mine are up and down this way, the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to come in and I'm going to go down. I'm through this loop here. Now I'm going to go this here through the bottom one. I'm going to go across and back down through that hole. Try not to get everything too tangled like it is now. Oh, this came out of the, so I'm going to put it back over here. There we go. That goes there. I'll put that needle down. That goes there. And this gets tightened. Okay. See that? There we go. And again, we want to make sure that's lined up correctly. And see that stitch that I made just stitches right in. Okay, or just lays right in. So now, in order to hold this so it's not going to go everywhere, I'm going to do the same thing for the top. And I'm going to do everything twice. This back through the leader. Okay, I still have peyote stitch to show you, so if you want to hang out, hang out. We're just gonna go long today, right? It's gonna be a free tip Friday. That's like the longest one ever, but that's what we're gonna do because I really wanted to show you how this leather worked out. Sorry, I caught the thread again. Oh, geez, come on now. There we go. Pull this up, or actually pull it out. See, because I don't want to split the threads there too much. And let's get this back in there. I think we want 2 stitches. You could also stitch this, honestly, with a Ceylon that was the same color, but maybe thinner. So it's not so bulky, but I think it's actually stitching on okay. Okay, so let me go through down to the bottom. No splitting of threads. These holes are a little smaller than what I was working with previously, so it's a little tougher to do. Let's look for a spot that doesn't have any thread in it. There we go. And things will kind of move around a bit until you lock everything in. Tighten that up, tighten this one. Now bring it around one last time. Now I did these single holes like this. If you look at Allie's photo, she did 2 holes side by side. And I'm seeing why she did that. A little bit easier to stitch, but I think it's going to look just fine. See, nice and even. Yeah, my mom's asking if I'm going to glue this. And yeah, that's probably actually what I want to do at this point before I tighten everything up. So let me just add a little bit of GS Hypo. Yeah, and it won't take long to show you the peyote stitch, my friends. I'll show you. Okay, so now let me come up. This will be my final stitch. I didn't want to put the glue on too soon because I didn't want the glue to kind of go everywhere while I was stitching it. Let's see if I can get that in there. There we go. And I've got a little bit of a tangle back here, but I'm the boss of this thread, so let me untangle it. I'm going to cut this leader off because it is a little tangled. It'll be a little easier for me to untangle it if the needle is off. There we go. There we are. Okay. So here, and that's on there pretty nicely, right? I could stitch maybe one more time. Again, maybe some thinner edges or something like that. Or thinner threads rather. But back here, I could, and maybe I will, I don't know. I could tie it underneath here and it would look so much cleaner. Let me see if I can get this. I cut the leader away, but let me see if I can tie this. I might be asking for trouble. But nothing ventured, nothing gained, right? If I have trouble with it, I'm just going to knot it on the back here and call it a day. But it would look so much cleaner if it was knotted in the front under the macrame like I did the button. Let's see if I can get this through. Knot didn't hold, but where's the end of that thread? Nope. So let's pretend that I stitched that on with thinner thread, or that a billion people weren't watching me and ready to move on to peyote. I'm just going to go ahead and tie this in an overhand, or in a square knot rather. Nice and tight. This knot will never be noticed anyway, so I don't know why I'm fretting, right? So let me just glue it, and I'll come in and I'll thread burn this in a moment. I get stubborn. Do you ever get that way when you're doing a project and you're like, I am going to make this thing work? Let me cut away a little bit of that extra, and then I'll come in and thread burn it close in a moment. All right. So see what we've got here? And it may be easier, I don't know, if you could make this piece and then add the peyote stitch to the middle. I'm just thinking about this. Also, the peyote stitch, since we're not using, so we're using heavier beads, right? So they're going to take up more space, right? So when this bracelet goes around your wrist, those beads, let me show you with this. See how the beads take up space, right? So the way I might tackle this, if you're making this like Allie's piece, right, with the 6mm, I might start with the plain leather like this. We're going to peyote stitch those over the top, because that tube that we're making will probably slide around on this leather, because then you could slide, you could size it with that peyote section size it on your wrist. Then you'll be able to take this thickness into account. I think that if I peyote stitched with something that's going to be thick over this already finished piece, it would be too small, right? Does that make sense? Because that you need some space somewhere. It's like if you're making a ring, you're sizing metal stock for a ring, you've got to add the thickness of the metal to the length, or else that ring's going to be too small. So let me go ahead and just thread burn this away. And then let's talk peyote stitch. Let's all take a moment, and I want you all to stretch, or wherever you're sitting or whatever you're doing. Take a moment. Let's breathe in and out nice and deep and reset. Okay. But I am going to see if this fits. And I think I might want to wear this closure. I'm going to put it on this wrist. I might want to wear this closure facing up. I've got too much stacked on my other wrist. Oh, come on now. Look at how cute that looks. I might make it just a hair bigger. I did this, or I'd make the cut in it a little bit wider, but if the gap in it's a little wider, it's going to sit kind of funny. So I would say, my friends, that I would cut this at 6 3/4, because again, this width also has to have somewhere to sit. But I love it. I love, 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 love it. Let me see if I can. Well, I don't even really need to get it off, I guess, but I don't want you to be distracted while I'm stitching. There we go. And some of you noticed this is a vintage, I think it's Navajo, this piece, Kingman turquoise, I think. It dates from probably the early 1920s. It was a really good, it was a friend of my grand's, and I just love it. Leather does stretch, for sure, Cindy. So, I don't know. I don't know if it would stretch that much. I mean, you could test a couple, but I think 6 3/4 inches would be a little bit better. Anytime you're going to add something to this, add a little bit of length. I also want to see, before we get to the peyote, do I have them sitting here? I do. Here's the Apple Watch connector. Yeah, this doesn't quite fit through. I was hoping this might slide on the leather, but it does not. So scratch that. Okay. All right, let's take a look at the peyote. Let me put this aside. Let me get rid of my pounding board here. Let me move the hammer out of the way. Janice, do you know that I have the one from the office that says your old Kenneth Drive address on it? I was looking for it to use today, but I think it's in the toolbox. But I have it. If you want it, let me know. I'll mail it to you. But it was at the office, so I have it. Okay. Get rid of this. Get rid of this. Let's switch courses. Okay. So I'm going to, so I have a shorter piece. I'm going to cut about 8 inches to work with, and I'm not going to do anything fancy to cut it. I'm just going to use my wire cutter here. I've got 8 inches here, and I'll adjust the length a little later. Okay. So for the peyote, we used Fireline. Okay, that's what Allie suggested. She said that the KO didn't work quite as well, and particularly because these Firepolish for seed bead stitches have relatively huge holes. Okay, the button I chose for this is the old coin button. Obviously, you just put the holes there and you'd stitch this through like it was a shirt button, right? And the shank is going to let that sit up a little bit. Okay, which is good. All right, but you do it the same way. The leather that I chose for it is the 1.5 millimeter distressed denim. And of course, here's the cerulean is the color for the regular Ceylon. But let's focus on the peyote stitch, shall we? This is a 6 millimeter Firepolish, and there are 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 25. Now, if we look at Allie's piece here, okay, let's look at this piece that she did. If we count the up and the down rows, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 beads across. So that makes it odd count peyote. And she did that because she wanted the peyote stitch to be symmetrical on both sides. Okay? One going up on this side and going up on this side, right? With even peyote stitch, you have an up bead on one end and a down bead on the other. Okay? So I'm going to use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to do even count, and I'm going to go 6 across. Okay, so the way that these are going to go on is, I just want to look at this one more time. Yeah. My first 2 rows, when I put these on, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That'll be my first 2 rows, right? So I'm going to go over peyote stitch, but I'm not going to go over it in super detail. We're going to talk about fitting these beads on and stuff, but Emily has a great peyote stitch tutorial over in our seed bead school section. So you can find it there. I don't know why I pulled out all of these needles. I just need one. You could use a regular size 10 beading needle. Again, I've got these sharps out. A longer beading needle might be happier, but I'm going to use this one. I'm going to leave a bit of a tail to weave in later, and I'm going to put on all 6 of these to start. I'm not going to put on a stopper bead. I'm just going to pray to the bead gods that the beads don't fall off the other end. Let's see if I can do it. So here's the 6th, my peyote stitch right here. Okay. Now what I'm going to do to bring the peyote stitch around, for my second row, I'm going to put on 1 6mm. Let me get a little tighter with the camera. I'm going to put on 1 6mm, skip 1 6mm, and go through the next one. Okay. And Dawn, that's a good question. Dawn's asking, why are the outside rows have 3 in the delicas? I'm going to show you. We're gonna get to the small beads because it's the large 6mm on the top and the smaller beads, whether it's cubes or delicas or whatever, is on the bottom, on the underside of the bracelet. So here's that one. And see, you kind of have to tell the beads where to sit. So I'm going to skip 1, right? I put 1 on, went through 1, skip 1, and now I'm going to go through this bead. Fireline, I think, is the exact right thing to use for this because it is, it has a tendency to be a little more wiry. And so it holds everything in place. Also notice I kind of, with these beads, I have to coax them where they want to sit. Your third row will, or your fourth row, rather, this is the third row I'm putting in. Your fourth row will bring everything even. Okay, so just stick with it. I know it looks like the dog's breakfast, but just hang in there with me. Okay, so we've gone through this last one. So let me tighten everything up. That bead should kind of be displaced, but it will be once I put that other bead in. So now we're going to turn the corner. I'm going to leave a little bit of thread loose a little. And I'm going to come in and we're going to go through, put on a bead, skip a bead, put on a bead, go through a bead, it's definitely different doing a peyote stitch with a fire polish. See, you kind of have to push these singles, push the doubles down and the singles up so it forms that little space. Okay. Put on a bead, skip a bead, go through a bead, tighten, put on a bead, skip a bead, go through a bead, and turn. This is kind of the up bead here, right? You can see that sort of. So I put on a bead, skip a bead, go through a bead, tighten, put on a bead, skip a bead, go through a bead, Okay. You could double the 6 mil, or the fire line, but I'm actually not going to do that at this point, because I can come back in Allie's instructions that she sent me. You can go back through and reinforce if you want. And when I place this on, you can see we're almost there, actually. Let me just look at this one here. So see, oh, and you know what? No, I'm doing this right. For a minute, I was like, are these in the wrong orientation? So on her piece, let me see, she's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 rows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. See, this is 6 rows right here down. So I need to maybe do 2 more rows up and down here. So let's pick up a bead. Now I can kind of start cooking with gas here, because the beads kind of make that little hole that you go through. And this one. There's one more row. And now I'm going to do my final row. And see, that's looking a lot. Whoops, sorry, you can't see it because that was in the way. Sorry about that. I'm going to do one more of the fire polish here. On a bead, scoop the bead, go through. Then we're going to add the cuts. Now, Allie added cubes in some she used size 8 delicas. I'm going to use the cuts and see what happens. And I'm going to answer that question too about why does it look like there are 3 beads and then 2, etc. So see, this is why Allie did the odd count, to see how one side has 4 and the other side has 3. I'm not overly fussed by that. But you could do odd count. The turning on the odd count always kind of makes me a little crazy, so I'm not going to worry about it too much. But see here, this I think looks pretty nice. I could go, do I need one more? I think I might need one more row. Let me do one more. And then we'll start with, and this takes up all of your fire polish on this strand anyway, so that's good. All but one, I think. And that extra one you can use, Allie used it on her closure to stitch through. So you've got a spare. Okay, if you're doing odd count, you will want to get 2 strands. Okay, so here's our little guy. Our guy right here, okay, of our strip of peyote. So now let's come in. I'm going to zoom out just a hair. Let's come in, and we need to add our small beads. So see here in this, if you look at where the A dots start, see how that first row, it does have 3, then there's 2, 2, 2, 2, and it ends up with 3. I think Allie distributed it this way because that's the size that the beads called for. 2, 2, and 2 may have been too small, but 3 all the way across may have been too large. Okay, so we just treat that grouping of either 3 or 2 as if it were one bead. Okay, so let's see what ours is going to call for. All right. Whoops, sorry, let me take this off. Okay, so you could definitely wax the fire line for sure. You could use, this is 4 pound You could use 6 for sure, right? Okay, so let me start. This is a down row. So let me put on my cuts. Let me get this leather out of the way and let me get this down. These are the size 8 hex cuts. So they look pretty similar to Delica's. They're fairly similar in size. See, I'm checking the size here and it's about right, but let me see. Maybe I need 3. Maybe I need to do what Allie did. See, that 3 might be better. Let me put on 3 and then I'll go, I would do 3 on this side. You know, it would go 3 and 3 on opposite rows because it's not symmetrical. I think actually that third one curves around a bit much. So I'm just going to go for 2. So let me take this out. You take out 1. Okay. So now I'm going to go to a 2 drop. And I'm going to go 2 drop, which means we're doing 2 beads for every space instead of 1. I don't know. I would check and see how this worked out doubled. You just want to keep your tension tight. So I don't know. There's lots of room in these holes. I only had the 4-pound fire line. 6 might be better. I don't know. But I can also go back through and reinforce for sure. Yeah, see, I like the 2s. So we're going to go with the 2s. It's going to cinch it in a little bit, kind of like a belt. But I'm all right with that. Okay, so now I'm going to flip. 1, 2, and through. Because it's not quite right. They're a little off in size. Pull that tight. So you have to use a little bit of creative license here. But 2 of these look good, I think. Again, Allie was saying the cubes, she liked the cubes the best. And I can kind of see why. The cubes probably slot themselves in here just perfectly. But you could also use smaller beads, I guess. I guess you could use size 8 rounds, though she said she didn't really like how the round seed beads looked. But your experience may vary. But see here, let me get a little tighter. It looks a little wonky. But I think that once you get a few more rows, it's going to even out. So let's turn it. I know I didn't go back through the needle head first or take the thread out. I know I was playing with fire there. It really was. 2 drops. So put 2 on, go through 2. And come back. 2 on, go through 2. Yeah, see that second row is tidying everything up. It's also pulling the back in, but that's not necessarily a bad thing because it's lending stability to this piece here. So let me keep going. Gosh, this is like the longest episode I've ever done, but I'm sorry, friends. But I know you want to see this, so we're in it now, right? You can always, if you have to leave, you can come back and watch the replay. It's not going anywhere. And I want to show you how to weave in and out too. So Janice, I know you're going to have to pick up Eli soon, but we'll just soldier on as long as we need to soldier on. Okay? Right? It's a Friday. What else are we going to do? Right? It's the right time to bead. And this is just how it is. Okay, so see, let's get our leather and take a look how this is coming. So see, it's going to wrap around the side like so. All right? So it's getting there. So I'm gonna peyote stitch like I mean it. I'm gonna have to change the thread here pretty quickly, pretty soon, because I don't want to run out of thread. I don't want to make it too short. But literally, it's a few beads across each row. You could try this, of course. You could size down. You know, the adventure bracelets that I made before were all shadows, right? So that regular shadow, you could try a smaller bead on the back, like an 11/0 would probably work, and do that same kind of small cinching around the back of it. That would work out. Okay, and flip. These cuts, I think, add a lot to this piece. The shine, the inner fire, just like this bracelet's namesake, Toni Morrison. There we go. And flip. Do a couple more rows, and then we're going to weave out. We're going to weave this thread out. And we'll weave a new one in. Tension is so important when we're working with kind of these odd shapes of peyote. This is kind of akin to freeform. When I do freeform peyote stitch, you kind of have to make it work, keep the tension all even. But freeform peyote is coming. I love the way freeform peyote looks. And we're just going to go through here. Now, let's go ahead. I'm going to weave on a new thread. So let me tell you this. Okay, so I'm here, right? I have this section over here with no peyote. Okay, so what I'm going for here is I'm placing this on top, and I'm going to wrap this around the back, right, and then zip it up on the side. Now it might be easier for me, especially since I have a piece right here, to start some peyote on this side, go this way, and zip it up the middle. So that's what I think I'm going to do. So I'm going to leave that needle on. I'm going to get another size 10, which is here. I wish I had left a tail that was a little bit longer, but I'm just going to go with what I've got here. And I did 2 and 2. So I do this a lot. And this, again, it's very akin to freeform, right? So I can let me needle this thread. I can get my front piece all lined up, and then I can zip it up the center. I think that makes more sense. It might be a little harder to zip it up the side, holding the piece and everything, right? There we go. And see how this is kind of curving in. So I want to kind of have the tension on this side also pulling in kind of an even manner. It may also have been a little bit easier with Allie's because she used an odd count peyote. But I don't know. I don't love odd count. I just don't. Emily does it very well. And I thought about doing it with odd count, and then the thought of doing odd count on camera gave me a stomach ache. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do this my way. So that's what I'm doing. I'm doing it my way, friends. But odd count would work nicely. Odd count, though, my friends, remember, you're going to need 2 strands of fire polish. What I used here, I have 24 6mm fire polish in this piece here. We've gotten so many new. We were going to do a project with Janice is doing a project, actually. It's very beautiful. And she thought she would use some 6mm fire polish for it. But she ended up not using it. So we launched them all. Whoops, I just had beads go. Did you hear that? The beads went to their natural home on the floor. Perfect. Thank you, seed beads. We're just going to ignore that. We got a whole bunch of new colors in the 6/0. In the 6mm. So any of these colors would look beautiful. Look at this maroon. I love this red, how it looks with that gray. But anyway, you can peruse those at your leisure. So now I'm ready to add thread. So I'm going to leave this side. I'm going to add thread over here. Okay. So I'm going to get my fire line. Yeah, cubes in the front. You could do that. You could do a different color bead in the center and then move out. You could try dropping down to 4mm fire polish with this. The adventures are endless with this. So let me get yet another needle. Let me yet again needle that thread. Is anyone ready for lunch? I think my stomach is growling. Usually I'm having lunch by this time, but I'm gonna soldier through. We're really getting there. We're super close, friends. So thank you for sticking with me on this. There we go. So now I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna weave. And this is what I mean about reinforcing. So I'm just going to start back there. I'm going to keep a tail long enough to kind of do some more reinforcing here. I'm going to go down this bead, back up this bead. Cross over because I need my thread to come out right here. 3mm fire polish would also look amazing with this stitch. I hope that you're seeing that we could use just about anything. You just need to get the ratio of the bead in front and the bead in back to work together nicely. Okay, I'm going to go here. I'm going to go back down. Then I'm going to pop over to the peyote stitch right here. There we go. So there's my new needle, my new thread. Let's put that aside. Let's take my old thread. I'm going to go down through this 6/0, or this, keep calling them 6/0s, 6mm through. I'm really coming to the last moment of my thread here. One more. I need to turn a corner. There we go. And I'll come in and I'll cut that away. Or thread burn it away. So there's that one. I'm not gonna do anything with this needle at this end yet because I may need it. And I'm not going to do anything with that tail either. So let's get a couple of rows on here. I hope that was fairly clear. And again, once you get your rows on here and start to tighten, everything's going to sit a lot better. Okay, so just keep that tension where it needs to be. Again, with two, it's kind of pulling everything a little, but you can experiment and see what works for you. I think the cubes are a good way to go on this because they do like slot, they're cubes, so they go right where you put them. But see, since the tension now is equal on this side and this side, so that this isn't looking curled that way and this one isn't. So I think it's actually a pretty good idea to do it this way. Yeah, who knew this Free Tip Friday was going to be such a marathon? I should have probably done this in 2 parts, but I know you folks are anxious to get started on this. So if you're watching this on replay, whatever, just fast forward through all the stuff you don't need to see to get to the meat of the project. But I think that the leather portion, I hope I gave you some good tips on working with leather. I love working with leather. We'll revisit more when I've got some tools that are going to be coming. We also have some ultra suede and some new colors that are coming. We're moving from the smaller pieces of ultra suede to the larger pieces because that's how our supplier is doing it. So I think that the strap leather plus ultra suede, like for some bead embroidery or something, is going to equal a really cool project. We're also going to use that ultra suede for those of you who came to the bead retreat. I did a whole section on tassels. That was my breakout session. We're going to do some more work on air with the ultra suede and tassels. Now let's see where we are with the wrapping of this. Okay. So let's bring it around. We're getting there. And plus we want this to be fairly tight. So we want to get this as tight as we can. So I'm going to put in a few more rows. Essentially, we're going to close this up like we would any peyote stitch bead. If you look on Emily's, I think it might have been her For the Guys bracelets, where she did the multi-strands of wax linen and then did a peyote stitch bead around those to hold that wax linen together. And she just zipped up the bead along the side. I'm going to do 2 more rows and then we'll look at it. Thank you, Janice. Janice is saying goodbye to everyone here. She's got to go pick up her grandson. So thank you, Janice. for moderating this epic episode. I'm surprised there are still not many people have bowed out. Thank you so much, friends, for sticking with me on this. I'm going to put in one more row, then we'll measure. But there's only a few beads per row, right? So it's not too lengthy of a project, except when you're doing it right on air. And you want it to go super fast. And I'm sorry I didn't have time to pre-prep. Like Emily's piece that she did Wednesday, wasn't that a beautiful presentation? She just did such a great job with that brick stitch earring. Looks so nice. So now we have to think about when we close it. And you can see it best here that both of these sides are an in. The beads go in and then out. So on this one, these all go in. So here, this one needs to go out, 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 out. So let me put in one more row. And then let's see how these are fitting together, because we need an up row on one side and a down row on the other. Yeah, yes, Wednesday's episode was truly epic. And Emily has a really nice handout that she made for it, so you can download the handout. I wish we had time to do more handouts. I know that's a lot of you have said in that survey we put out a while back. Handouts. So we're going to try and do more. I'm sorry, I don't have all the hours in the day that I want to have. Let's see. It looks, maybe I can get away with 2 more rows. Right, shall we? All right, I've got the thread. Let me hurry up and do it. I really want to close this for you on the air. And what's a few more minutes, right? When we've all been here this long. I'm going to have a toes up after this episode. I have more stuff to do. I've got product to order. Still have all kinds of stuff to do today. That's all right. I am lucky to be here, 100%. And this is where you need to keep measuring to make sure that you don't make it too big or too small. So let's pull it around. My Apple Watch is telling me it's time to stand. I am standing, Apple Watch. Okay, I think I can zip it. I think I can. Let me see. If I add 2 more, if I added 2 more rows, it might be too big. Emily is asking how the kitties are. Kitties are good. I think Alfred's probably in for his midday nap right now. So see how I'm just going to come in, and that up row and this down row are going to come together. Yep. And it's going to fit, I think, just fine. So I go to this down row, this up row, and the up row on the other side, and pull. Come on. And remember what I said earlier about putting this on first so you know how much additional length to add when you are when you're sizing this sucker. So this comes here. This is, where's my up row? Here it is. And it looks a little loose right now, but just trust me. And then I go to this up row. Now I'm going to tighten it. I said, now I'm going to tighten it. Maybe I need to tighten it a little bit more up there first. Okay. Yeah, we are broadcasting on a bunch of different platforms, everyone. So some of you are on Facebook. Oh, this is what the problem is. There's something funny right there. Some of you are on Facebook. Some of you are on YouTube. We thank all of you for being here. So let me get this needle, and I need to come in. Go through this last one. Can you see that? And then I'll reinforce it here. Yeah, I have to squeeze a little bit to get all of these together, but I think that 2 more rows just would have made this too big. And see, I'm just going to keep stitching this kind of back and forth. I'm going to go back up the zipper, I think, so it tightens everything up. Yeah, see, there we go. Look at how nice it looks closed. Let's keep going. And again, your mileage may vary. This leather may vary slightly in width because it is all handmade for us. So, you know, it's not going to be perfectly uniform, but it's pretty good, if I do say. So here we go. And I'll just go back and forth, and reinforce this in, okay? Which I'm not going to take the time to do at this moment because you can see how this is going to go. Let's take a look at the front, okay? What I'm going to do with all these tails is I'm just going to weave it in wherever it goes. But look at how nice that looks on the front. And you can see, let me scoot this out just a hair, okay? So I can see, whoops, how this would fit on the wrist. I need a little more room. So if I slide this down, that comes to about right here. This comes to about right here. Let me measure this for you. Yeah, I'm at closer. Yep, I'm at about 6 3/4 of an inch. So I needed just a little bit more to help this sit nicely. But my friends, I think that we have done it. So let me go over what I've got here. I'm going to finish this up like I did here with the correct button that I've chosen, this button. And that thread, won't it look nice? And the same distressed denim. Also, don't forget, remember way back when, it feels like it was last year when I finished that edge up. I actually used the Sharpie marker and the beeswax to finish that. So, my dears, woo! There I am. Do I look haggard? I did it. So a big, giant thank you to our friend Allie Mori for, look at the hex beads. You could just use the hex beads around this with no 6 mil, right? Wouldn't it be nice? We have the 6 mil in so many colors here. This is the antique silver that I used, but very pretty. A bunch of different colorways in the 6 mil. They would look great. A big, big, big thank you to our buddy Allie Mori for sending us and posting such really great inspirational pieces with this leather. You can find this photo in your newsletter today. You can see that. As well as she's posted some on the bead table. Now, do remember, my friends, that Allie is not a bead shop employee. She's doing this for us out of the goodness of her heart. So please, if you have questions, try and ask them thoughtfully, or you can always email us, of course, over at beadshop, info@beadshop.com, and we'll do our best to answer them. You can find us on all of our socials, including Facebook, the Bead Table, Instagram, that's what it's called, and Pinterest. Of course, hit that like and subscribe button over on YouTube. And please, if you're going to ask Allie a question, just tag her or whatever in the group. If you can, please refrain from sending her direct messages and stuff like that, because she's just a beater, just like the rest of you. And she does this for us out of the kindness of her heart. And we are eternally grateful, not only for Allie, but for all of you, my dear friends. So don't forget to jump over to beadshop.com. Take a look at all of our projects, everything. We've got a lot of different stuff going on over there. I hope to see you make some really cool stuff with this flat leather. We're going to be getting some new colors in soon, so hang tight. Those will be coming. It takes a while for our manufacturer to make those for us, but do know that they're coming. Also, these the clasps that you folks love so much, these little smooth clasps here, more of those are coming as well. So if we're out of any of them, go ahead and put yourself on the waiting list for that. All right, everybody, have a creative, fantastic weekend. I'm going to drink my cold coffee, and I'll see you next week for Bead Shop Live. That's what I'm trying to say, on Wednesday. Thanks so much, everybody. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.